This week on Motoring 90.
A lot of people who aren't familiar with the details of tires, they know they're round and black, and they have the idea that they're punched out like donuts.
She is reaching women who now are 35% of the buying public and represent over 80% of the purchases that are made within our business.
Motoring 90 is brought to you by Quaker State. The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will.
There are tires, and then there are tires. Now, this is a big one. Would you believe the tallest tire in the world is over 12 feet? Hello, everybody, and welcome to Motoring 90. We're in a place they call Rubber City, better known as Akron, Ohio. Now, this is home to Goodyear, one of the world's largest manufacturers of tires. Now, I don't know about you, but when I go in to buy a tire, I'm totally confused. They all look the same. But we're going to visit Goodyear, and we're going to discover how they make tires and also how they test them for both performance and safety. Although Akron is also home to Firestone, Bridgestone, and BF Goodrich, Goodyear is the only company still producing tires in this Ohio city. This is the Goodyear Tech Center. For years, this is where the majority of Goodyear tires were produced. Today, the factory is gone, and it has been replaced with an ultra-modern interior. The man who had a great deal of input into the present-day complex is a 30-year veteran with Goodyear. Frederick Kovac is the Vice President of Tire Technology, and when it comes to learning about today's modern tire, Fred Kovac is the man to talk to.
A lot of people who aren't familiar with the details of tires, they know they're round and black, and they have the idea that they're punched out like donuts. But actually, tires are a very sophisticated consumer product. They're a high-performance composite. That means they are manufactured by combining layers of materials, and this is what gives you the very strong, very durable tire today. Matter of fact, tires today are a much better value than they've ever been in the history of our country. The materials start from two basic places. Number one, natural rubber, which makes up a large part of the tire, is a renewable resource that starts from the rubber plantations, either in the Far East, or in Africa, or in Brazil, in various parts of the globe, very near to the equator. And these trees are tapped, and the rubber drips out from the tree as a latex. This latex is then coagulated, and it forms a very tough rubber, which is further processed into tires. Now, a second source of rubber is synthetic rubber. Now, this comes from oil in very large manufacturing plants. Also a very complicated chemical process. In tires, we use both natural rubber and synthetic rubber, and we combine them to get the type of properties that we want. All of the basic work in developing tires goes on here. This starts right from the creative ideas on new tires that are put forth to engineering those ideas into usable products. Then fabricating those products. We actually have an experimental tire workshop where we can build any type of tire right here on the facility. And then closely adjacent, we have a test track so that we can conceive the tire, we can build the tires, and we can take them to the test track for testing, all in the same vicinity.
There are over 1,000 engineers, scientists, and technicians employed at the center, and many of them are young, like 28-year-old Paul Maxwell, who is a big part of the design team.
I'm looking 5-6 years down the road, maybe even more, with some of the concepts. It's something that's workable but not necessarily producible today. A lot of people have a real limited window that they look through at tires, and my job is to expand that and show them things that they never thought of before and even considered possible in tires. And that's not just in the company, Goodyear, but also out with the auto companies and the general public, and as in auto shows that see our concept tires.
The track we have here is a 82-acre track, and we're standing on the vehicle dynamics area. In this area we can use for either wet or dry handling performance. Today we're having a demonstration of the effect of various tire compounds on wet handling performance. And on one of the cars we have a compound that would be utilized in your summer type tire, and another compound is the high performance tire compound. And as you can see, the drivers are experiencing the difference that a small change like tire compound can have on wet traction.
So it's obvious that Goodyear is devoted to advancing the science and technology of tires. But what happens to old tires? This was the scene earlier this year in Hagersville, Ontario. A tire dump caught fire and it raged for weeks. The result was a yet undetermined amount of air and soil pollution, and tires very quickly became an environmental hazard.
This is a serious problem, and we have investigations are underway with various ways of disposing of used tires. This includes incineration, that is burning them like coal or like oil to get fuel and to get heat. And this is very interesting, and there's some pilot projects underway there. Secondly is what we call a destructive distillation, where you actually subject a tire to intense heat and reduce it back to the basic oils from which it was made, and then these can be recycled. So there's a lot of work, a lot of investigation going on. This is one problem that must be resolved for the environment, and I would expect the 1990s will see that solution.
Once you've located the object that's pierced the tire, it's important not to remove it till you're ready to repair the tire.
Still ahead on Motoring 90, Bill puts a plug in it.
Stay tuned. Coming up on Test Drive, the 1990 Honda Accord, a car with a very definite distinction.
Test Drive with Graham Fletcher.
This week on Test Drive, we look at the 1990 Honda Accord. Now, this vehicle has the distinction of being the #1 seller in the United States last year. Now, to accomplish this, it had to overcome some pretty hefty competition, most notably the Ford Taurus, the Ford Tempo, and General Motors' popular Chevy Cavalier. The new 2.2-litre 16-valve engine features 2 counter-rotating balance shafts. These, along with some fancy engine mounts, are designed to minimize the amount of engine vibration passed on to the occupants. They do a reasonable job for the most part, but like most 4-cylinder engines, there is a fair bit of vibration felt at idle when in gear. The engine produces 130 horsepower, meaning the Accord is no slouch. However, the real benefit comes from the 142 pounds-feet of torque. This makes the car feel a lot quicker than it actually is and ensures a prompt response to the driver's requests. Matched with the new engine is an equally new automatic transmission that features both sport and normal modes. The sport mode delays upshifts, which equates to crisper performance. The normal mode improves fuel economy. In either mode, the shifts were somewhat erratic during part throttle driving conditions. Other than that, no complaint. One of the major advantages of double wishbone suspension system that you'll find on this Accord is the fact that it allows the car to ride at a much flatter attitude. It also cuts down on the amount of camber variation in this type of maneuver. The EXR features a front disc rear drum brake setup. While the stops are controlled and short, the lack of a 4-wheel disc brake system with an anti-lock feature is a real surprise, something that must be addressed in the near future. This is the 4th and largest version of the Accord. All interior dimensions are bigger, with the wheelbase being 5 inches longer than last year's model. Despite this, the rear seat legroom is still tight with tall passengers in the front. As with many of today's new sedans, the rear seat back folds down. I like Honda's idea of having to use the ignition key to release it. This adds security to the much appreciated versatility. The EXR is fully optioned, featuring power locks, windows and sunroof, as well as a stereo radio cassette with a full graphic equalizer. The dash configuration is superb, with everything being easy to read, reach and operate. The driver's seat offers plenty of comfort and support, and I like the location of the dead pedal. It provides a welcome perch for your left foot. It's very difficult to knock a car that does things as well as the 1990 Accord. My pet peeve is with what they left off the option list. They omitted anti-lock brakes. Now, I think this is unforgivable for a company that actually went and designed its own system. Anyway, now to the scoreboard and see how I rated the rest of the 1990 Honda Accord. The double wishbone front suspension system is vastly superior to any of the McPherson strut types. The ride is comfortable and compliant and retains enough firmness to handle the pylon test with great aplomb. The lack of an ABS option really surprised me because Honda have a tailor-made system already fitted to the Acura Integra. That said, the stops are still straight and quick, averaging 112 feet from 80 kilometers an hour. The Honda boasts 130 willing horsepower, which, with the transmission set in sport mode, ensures the Accord reaches the 100k mark in rapid fashion. Our test car was equipped with the recommended Michelin snow tyres, not the standard all-season type. While the improved performance in the snow is appreciated, the additional noise is not. The persistent howl becomes very annoying. During the test, we averaged 10 litres per 100 kilometres or 28 miles per gallon. This figure can be bettered if the vehicle is operated with the transmission in the normal mode and the gas pedal applied more judiciously. The new Accord is definitely worthy of the praise it receives and is sure to be a hot seller. If they match last year's selling rate of 1,000 cars per day in the US, one has to wonder just how long it will be before Honda replaces Chrysler as one of the big three.
Everywhere you go here at the Goodyear Tech Center, you will see tires of all sizes undergoing performance and durability tests like the one here behind me. But we're going to leave the center and head to the garage and join our favorite mechanic, Bill Gardiner. And you'll never guess what Bill wants to talk about this week. That's right, tires.
If your car is riding on fairly new full-depth tires, you can quite often get away with picking up small items like finishing nails or small screws that'll pierce the tread but not puncture the tire completely and cause it to deflate just by the fact that you've got a lot of tread depth. But as your tires become more worn, they become more and more susceptible to puncture. And we've got a couple of nails in this one. We're going to talk about a very safe and effective way of repairing these tires, sometimes without even demounting them. Now this tire also has a nail in the tread area, as well as a couple of punctures in the sidewall. We can see quite a steep angle that this nail is entering the tire, so as we remove it, we want to make note of that angle so that we can follow through the same angle with the repair. We won't end up crossing or making a different hole in the liner. We want to follow that same wound through the tire. So after we've removed the object, we're going to clean that puncture out with a reaming tool. And we have to turn that tool in clockwise. Even as we remove it, we always keep turning it clockwise. And that cleans the hole, and it moves the steel cords away from the injury, and it curls them around to the outside. If we leave them in the injury, they can chafe through the plug or make it impossible to get the plug through without damaging it. Now, in order to prepare the wound, we have to put some vulcanizing fluid on the tool and run it through that wound a couple more times to lubricate the hole and prepare it for installation of the repair plug. Once we've done that, we can pick up the plug. We've already partially removed the plastic cover from the plug, and it's important not to touch this type of a plug. Remove the reaming tool, and we're going to coat the plug with that same vulcanizing fluid that we used to lubricate the hole. And that's going to start this plug in a curing process that's going to take about 72 hours to complete. But when we install the plug in the tire, it'll repair the wound just by the compression fit of the plug. We're going to shove that plug tight through the tire. Now it's doubled back over on itself, and when we pull the tool out, the plug will be left in the tire, doubled up on the inside, and this cushion gum on the outside, the gray stuff that you see on the outside of the plug, will start to vulcanize itself right to the tire and to the other side of the plug. We're going to trim off the excess, as we said, and within 72 hours, this gray cushion gum on the outside of the plug will vulcanize itself. Along with that fluid, it'll vulcanize itself right to the tire, making a permanent repair of that wound. But supposing you've gone for your spare tire, you've got a flat, and you can't remove the wheel, or you can't get the jack to work, or whatever. For some reason, you can't get that wheel off the car, and you want to be able to limp the car home or to a service station. Here's a simple method of doing it. You can buy from an auto parts store a material called puncture seal, and this will charge the tire with air again, and will also install a latex foam inside the liner of the tire that will temporarily seal a puncture and allow you to limp the car in. Now you shake the can up, we've done that already, and attach it to the valve stem. Hold the can upright, and then You can see the foam entering through that tube, and it's charging up the tire. The tire's coming up slowly, and it's installing that latex foam inside the tire. This will completely inflate the tire, and as soon as you drive the car, that foam will distribute itself around the tire and find the wound and temporarily repair it, enough that you can limp the car in and have it properly repaired. Quite often this is very effective if the tire is frozen on the wheel or you can't remove the jack from the trunk. Until next week, I'm Bill Gardiner for Motoring 90.
We're going to have a number of cars out there and a number of service advisors here from the dealership to help check fluids and check tire pressure. All the things that we're not getting a chance to do or we're not being shown how to do, and we really need to know how to do them.
When Motoring 90 returns, taking the mystery out of car repairs.
They told me not to stand out here in the skid pad. I don't know why, there's no cars out here. Anyway, our next story is of particular interest to all the ladies in the audience. You know, a trip to the... Whoa, get dangerous out here. Anyway, a trip to the local garage for any of us can be an intimidating experience, but I think it's safe to say it's even worse for women. Well, Deborah Burgess is standing by with a story about a mechanic who's trying to make a trip to the garage much more pleasant for women.
Her book is called The Greaseless Guide to Car Care Confidence. It's by Mary Jackson, and we go back to the phones. CFRB, hello, Don, you're on the air.
How are you?
Where are you calling from, Don?
Orangeville.
Go ahead, Orangeville, with Mary.
Hi, Don. Mary Jackson came to Toronto to give a series of car care workshops. But as the guest on a local phone-in radio show, Mary was answering questions and giving advice on everything from gasoline octane levels to the latest designs from Detroit.
I'm in the market to buy a Lumina, I think. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to see what Mary says about the Lumina APV.
That's the Chev Lumina.
Yes.
Actually, I have been driving one of those I drove one of those last month for about 10 days, and I tell you, I was absolutely delighted with it.
It's not that Mary spent her entire childhood under the hood or behind the wheel of a car. She just needed a job after graduating from university and ended up on the line in an auto repair shop.
It was a little unusual back then, it was, but I learned so much, and really part of what I understood in working there was that cars were not ununderstandable, and the reason why I had so much trouble communicating with them is because nobody had ever taught me a thing about them. So some basics really showed me the way. I don't imagine that there's anybody in this room that has ever done this, but just in case, I'll share this with you. You see, what I would do is I developed an ability to know exactly how many drops of gasoline were in the gas tank. And I could drive this little VW Bug on fumes. What I didn't know is, see these little dots at the bottom of the fuel tank there? Those are little pieces of dust and dirt and rust and dirt.
Mary Jackson now visits dealerships across Canada and the United States, teaching the basics of car care to a largely female audience.
It's mostly women, probably 85 to 90% women, and they really represent the entire gamut of our society, from high school students to the elderly to career women, full-time career women to householders.
She is reaching women who now are 35% of the buying public and represent over 80% of the purchases that are made within our business. That tells me we've got to be more receptive and responsive to the demands of women in the marketplace today.
The facts that cars today are not simple. They're actually relatively complicated. Cars have about 15,000 parts. About 1,500 of those will actually move, and then maybe a couple of hundred of those ever get repaired or replaced in the lifetime of any car.
What sort of feeling do you hope the people who come to this seminar leave with?
Confidence. Confidence that they are able to talk to their mechanic, confidence that they're able to describe things better and understand what's said to them, whether it be the bill or the symptom itself, that they're able to use information in a more meaningful way than they have in the past. You know, it's very difficult to ask questions and get answers in a meaningful way if you have no picture of what the system looks like. And that's all it takes, is a very simple, basic picture, and you can start building information on that foundation.
What was the impetus to writing the book?
Well, I'd had such wonderful results with the workshop, with the seminar, and so many people wanted more information, and I couldn't be as many places as I wanted to be to share the information, and the book just seemed like the perfect vehicle to get that information out.
Is there a prejudice against women knowing something about their cars?
I think there's a perception that women don't know anything about their cars, and I think it really, it hurts. It's not a very healthy way to be. I think what we're realizing is we all need basic information, and it's available, and we need to take responsibility and go out and get it so that we're more in charge of this expensive and important part of our lives. Not only will a tire work better if it's properly inflated on a wet pavement, it'll work better on a dry pavement, and that's the way we want our tires to work. And additionally, a tire that's not properly inflated, you'll go through it like butter.
Contemplating car repair can be akin to a trip to the dentist. Terrifying. But Mary says the biggest part of the problem is really communication. Motor tech heads, as she likes to call them, speak a language she calls garage-ese, and most of us don't understand it. But if you can learn the language, you can take the terror out of talking to your mechanic. But you don't have to get her one of those thingamajigs and slide under the car and adjust the whatchamacallit. I'm Deborah Burgess for Motoring 90.
Yeah, trucks, you can't live with them, you can't live without them. That's coming up next on Kenzie's Corner.
Kenzie's Corner with Jim Kenzie.
Now, usually on Kenzie's Corner, I'm mad at somebody or something. The producers of Motoring 90 like it that way, but really, I'm a cheerful sort of a guy, and something happened a few weeks ago that made me even happier, and it concerned trucks. Now, a lot of people don't like truck drivers. They complain that they tailgate and they don't share the road and they cut them off. But believe me, the truckers have got a lot of horror stories about you four-wheelers too. Now, personally, I find truck drivers to be pretty good. In this particular instance, I was coming onto a freeway and I could see a trucker coming along in the right-hand lane. He put his turn signal on, moved over, let me on the road, passed me, put his turn signal on, and moved back. In other words, he did exactly what he was supposed to do. Now, I jotted down the name of his company. It was National Carriers of Liberal, Kansas, and I got a note of his trailer license number as well. A shipping company here in Toronto contacted National Carriers and found out who the driver was of that particular trailer on that particular day. So I can now say to you, Bill Edwards of Liberal, Kansas, good on you, mate. That was a nice piece of safe, courteous driving. And all the rest of you drivers out there, truckers and four-wheelers alike, let's follow his example. This is Jim Kenzie for Motoring 90.
Well, Goodyear produces much more than tires. Since 1914, they have been manufacturing airships. Now, we all know the Goodyear blimp. Well, inside this hangar in Akron, Ohio, is the world's most modern airship. It is called the Spirit of Akron. It's over 200 feet in length, 60 feet high, and has a cockpit that will rival any major airline. And on the side, over 8,000 lights. And you know, these airships have become a major promotional tool over the years for the company of Goodyear. Well, that is it for this week. We want to thank everybody at Goodyear for letting us inside the Tech Center to give you just a little bit of insight into the production of the modern tire. That's it for now. We'll see you next week for more of Motoring 90.
Motoring 90 is brought to you by Quaker State. The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will.